Welcome to lesson 9 of learning Greek of the Greek of the New Testament. The verse we're going to tackle today is again a complete verse. It has a number of new words in it, but they're all of great interest. So let's begin. The verse we're going to look at is John chapter 1 verse 6, the Gospel of John chapter 1 verse 6, and we'll take it in two parts. Here's the first part. Egeneto anthropos apistalmenos para Theou. So again, you can find this on my blog, and I've already written my paper, so you might like to do yours before you see what I've written. And I've printed it landscape because this is a little bit longer landscape on the paper. Okay, the first part, the letter by letter translation. Egeneto anthropos apistalmenos para Theou. And now the third part, which is the word by word translation. We note that there are several new words here, but we'll get some clues on them in a minute. And this is our word-by-word translation. Came man sent from God. So here is our first new word, egeneto, and this means usually means become or happen, but in this case we translate it came because it's referring to a man. We had this word anthropos before. We had it in a different form, anthropon. This is the base form of it, and so you will recognize the words that we get from it, like anthropology. Interesting to note that the first vowel is a long O, and the second O is a short O. Now the next word, which is also new, is apistalmenos, and that means sent. You might recognize the word apostle comes from this, and it has the verb ending menos, and the apo is changed, the apo is changed to ape, and the reason is that the e is a common indicator in Greek of past tense, and that's why this first verb began also with an e. It's probably the most common indicator of past tense, so you'll see that in lots of other verbs. And our next word, another new word, is para, and we've translated it as from. This word is familiar to us in English from such words as para-church. A para-church organization is one that works alongside the church. So para means alongside or from alongside. It takes the particular meaning from when the Theou, or the word or the noun after it, takes this particular kind of ending. So came man sent from God, and now our proper translation would probably say there came a man sent from God. So that's the first part of the verse. We'll now look at the second part of verse 6. I'll just fold that back, leave it there, and here's my ready folded sheet for the second part of verse 6, second part of John 1 verse 6, which completes the verse. Onoma auto Ioannis. So letter by letter translation, onoma auto Ioannis. Some of you who are familiar with this verse will already be figuring out what this means. So yes, onoma means name. We get a few words from it in English. Onomatics is the study of names. So there we are, we're learning new English words at the same time as we learn Greek. But name is a cousin word anyway. You see it's got the N and the M, just a vowel in the middle, and the vowel at the end changed a little bit, but the consonants, everything that's not a vowel is called a consonant, and consonants tend to stay the same, whereas vowels which are made in the middle of your mouth are easier to change their quality. So that's name, and auto means to or for him. And then his name is John. Now it's interesting, this name has been borrowed into just about every language under the sun. It's originally a Hebrew name, and it means Yah is gracious, which is why we spell it John with an H in there. You see there's no H in the Greek at all. But there was in the, at least in one form of the original Hebrew. And the J was originally the same as I, but just took a little curl in its tail there, and then coming into English it became used for a quite different sound, really, the J sound as in English. But it's interesting to see the form that this name takes in other languages. Giovanni, Sione, Sean, Hans, Hone, Juan, Keoni, Ivan, and Evan. All variations of the same name as it goes through sound changes in different languages. And it also has many feminine forms, including these in English: Jean, Joan, Jan, Jane, Joanne, Joanna, Janet, and Janice. So that's the name John. And the last step is the proper translation. His name was John. Again, notice there is, in the Greek there is no verb was, but we need to supply it in English. And instead of saying the name for him, we would just say his name was John. Another interesting point here, in the fourth gospel, which is this gospel that we're looking at, when the name John occurs alone like that, it always means John the Baptist. And since the writer of this gospel was always careful to distinguish between people of the same name, for example, 2 Judases and several Marys, this is a bit unexpected. And in fact, it's pretty good evidence that the writer of this gospel was John the Apostle, and modesty caused him to set aside the fact that his name also was John. Just one or two final points before we conclude. Going back to the first part of the verse, notice that there is no the before God. So while what we said in lesson 7 about John 1:1 is valid, remember we said there that because there was no the in front of God, it wasn't talking about God as a person, but it was talking about the quality of divinity or deity. So that's valid, but we see that it's not a watertight rule, because here we have theu without any the, yet it does mean God himself. So we learn an important point from this, that in these Gospels we can't appeal to technically precise and consistent terminology. It's written in ordinary language to be read by ordinary people just like you and me.